2-6 solving proportion notes. I'm going to put your name in that top right hand corner and today's date. And we have 2 learning targets for today, in that I can construct ratios and determine if ratios are proportional, and I can solve a proportion for a missing variable. I know for some of us it's been a while since we've had a true video lesson, so remember you can always press pause if you need more time to write something down and hit play when you're ready. So the first thing we're going to look at is a ratio, and it is a comparison of 2 different quantities. Whole thing shifted on me. There we go. So when we say it's 2 different quantities, we mean like we can compare how many, boys to the total amount of people we have in a room. And we can use it with a colon, so we can say boys to the amount of people. And you can even write as a fraction, boys and fraction bar people. Those are the 3 most common ways we see ratios written out. So we have it with the word 2, we have it with the colon, and we have it as the fraction. So one of the most common ways we actually do it for high school is as the fraction. So first things first, after our ratio, we have proportion, which is what we're mainly looking at today. So proportion is are equivalent try this again. There we go. Equivalent ratios. Now, as far as equivalent ratios go, it'd be like if we had 1/2 and 5/10, because we know that 1/2 is fully reduced, and it'd be like 0.5. 5/10 could reduce to 1/2 or 0.5. So those are equivalent because they're the same, they equal each other. And now we solve proportions by cross multiplication. Alright, now the next 2 vocabulary words are based on rate and scale. So rate is a ratio using 2 different units. One of the biggest ones like that we think about is always like miles per hour, and that's because miles is distance and hours is time, so it uses 2 completely different units there. And last one is scale, and scale is something that has been reduced or enlarged proportionally. And one of the biggest things about that is like maps. If you think about it, a map has a scale. Like if you have 1 inch is a mile, because it has been reduced. If you get the whole map of the country, on a piece of paper, of course it's been reduced down. And so it has a scale that tells you, a centimeter is, 100 miles or something like that, depending on how big or how small your scale is. And there we go. That finishes up for vocab. We'll dive right into the examples. So example 1, we're asked to solve the proportion. We're given 10/5 equals n/2. Alright, we solved this by cross multiplication. I always like to do the first one with my variable. You don't have to, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do 5 times n. And then you always drop down your equal sign. And then our next cross multiplication is 10 times 2. And now 5 times n is 5n equals 10 times 2 is 20. To solve for n, we're going to divide both sides by 5. And n equals 4. There we go. And now to check it, you know me, we always check our first few that we do to make sure we got the right answers, we know what we're doing. We have our 10 over 5 equals n over 2. This time I know n is 4, so 10 over 5 equals 4 over 2. A couple of different things you can do. You can reduce each fraction and say 10 over 5 is 2 equals 4 over 2 is 2, and 2 does equal 2, so that works. Or you can cross multiply again and see if those two numbers equal each other. So you can reduce the fractions and or do 10 times 2 and get 20 equals 5 times 4, which is 20, and that also checks. So there's two different ways to make sure you got your proportion correct. Alright, example 2. We have x over 2 equals 9 over 6. And now we're going to cross multiply. So I start with my variable first, so x. So I'm going to do x times 6. And this time I'm going to write just the answer. We won't worry about showing the multiplication. So x times 6 is 6x. Drop down our equal sign. 2 times 9 is 18. Last step to solve for x is to divide both sides by 6. 6's cancel, x equals 3. And for this one, let's do a real quick check and just plug in 3 here. So 3 over 2 can't reduce, so I can say that way. You can say 9 over 6 can reduce to 3 over 2, so that works. Or the 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, and 9 divided by 6 is 1.5, so that checks. Alright, example 3. We have 2 over j plus 3 equals 4 over 5. Now this one has a binomial in it, which means this one has two terms. So bicycles have two wheels. Our denominator here has two terms, so binomial. We're still going to cross multiply, but this time when I keep my variable first, my j plus 3 times 4, I'm going to have to keep my j plus 3 in parentheses to keep it all together. So I'm going to say it's going to be 4 times j plus 3 equals, now we can do this on our head, 2 times 5 gives us 10. And now it's a multi-step equation, so I'm going to distribute. My 4 times j is 4j. 4 times 3 is 12, equals 10. Now to solve for j, we're going to transpose our 12 and get 4j equals 10 minus 12. And now 10 minus 12 is going to give us negative 2. So 4j equals negative 2. Divide both sides by 4. And j is going to equal, or j, I don't know where a y came from. Try that again. There we go. J is going to equal negative 2 over 4 reduces to a negative 1/2. There we go. And we're all set. Now we'll see another one that has a binomial in it. So example 4. We have negative 4/5 equals 8 over z minus 5. So once again, to keep that binomial together, keep it in parentheses, and when we'll distribute it, there we go. We'll end up with negative 4 times z minus 5 equals, and now we do this part in our head. 5 times 8 gives us 40. Now we're to a multi-step equation where we distribute. Negative 4 times z is negative 4z. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20 equals 40. Transpose my plus 20 and negative 4z equals 40 minus 20 will give us 20. So negative 4z equals 20. Divide both sides by negative 4. Negative 4's cancel. And z equals 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. So z equals negative 5. Very good. Our example 5 here is one that has two binomials in it. So we got 7 over 5 equals p plus 4 over p plus 6. Now we are going to cross multiply again, but remember, keep it in parentheses. I'm going to do my 7 times p plus 6 equal sign drops down again, and my 5 times p plus 4. Once again, keep it in parentheses. 5 times p plus 4. This time we have a multi-step equation with the variable on both sides. So we're going to distribute first. 7 times p is 7p. 7 times 6 is 42. Equals 5 times p is 5p. And 5 times 4 is 20. Now take variables to the left, so I already have a 7p on the left. Bring over my 5p, it becomes a minus 5p, equals numbers on the right, so 20 drops down, and my positive 42 becomes a minus. There we go. Click off that one, minus 42. There we go, so 7p minus 5p is 2p. 20 minus 42 is a negative 22. Divide both sides by 2, and p equals negative 11. And we're all set. And that finishes us up for our proportions, and then that are already set up for us. This next set, we're going to have to make the proportion ourselves. So I forgot what example number we were. So this is example 6. There we go. And just write what I write. It says Trent goes on a 30-mile bike ride every Saturday. He rides the distance in 4 hours. At this rate, how far can he ride in 6 hours? So now, for a word problem, the first thing we've got to figure out is the units. So it goes in and tells us that he can do 30 miles in 4 hours. So our units are going to be miles and hours. And that's how we're going to set it up. So the first thing it tells us is he can do 30 miles in 4 hours. So 30 miles in 4 hours equals. Now this next part, it says how far can he ride in 6 hours? So since 6 is my hours, it belongs down here on the bottom with hours, so 6. Now I don't know how far that's going to be in miles, so I have to use an x, and now we're just going to cross multiply again. So 4 times x is going to give me 4x. 30 times 6 is going to give me 180. Divide both sides by 4. And now x is going to equal 180 divided by 4 is 45. And now we have to write this out where it's a word problem. So that's going to be 45 miles, because x was on top. We were looking for the distance in miles. So 45 miles in 6 hours. There we go. That's our solution. And one last example. 7 has our scale. So it says Crater Lake. The scale of a map for Crater Lake is 2 inches equals 9 miles. And that goes ahead and tells us our units. We're going to have inches and miles. And once again, it tells us that 2 inches is 9 miles. All right, equals. Now it says the distance between Discovery Point and Phantom Ship Overlook on the map is 1 3/4 inches. And it says, what is the distance between those two places? Alright, so we go back, we look, inches is on top, and inches is our scale. So our inches is going to be 1 3/4 inches. Over, I don't know how much that distance actually is, so I'm going to use an x. Now, we're going to look at it to cross multiply it. If you have trouble with this right here, you can always turn it to a decimal or an improper fraction. Like I know 3/4, so like 3/4 out of 4 make $1, so it's like 0.75, so it'd be 1.75. You can always just put in the calculator 3 divided by 4. So I'm going to go ahead and convert this top one to just a decimal to make it nice and easier to work with, so 1.75. And now we can cross multiply. So 2 times x is 2x. Then 9 times our 1.75 is going to give us 15.75. Divide both sides by 2. 2's cancel and x equals. Now 15.75 divided by 2 is 7.875. Once again, we have to go back to what we were looking for. X was on the bottom, and that's our miles. So the distance between those two places is 7.875 miles between Discovery Point